From MTN News, this is Face the State.
Billy Kleps dives into the debate and has that answer.
The only hospital that will be affected by some of those changes is the Billings Clinic, which offers hormone treatment to some of its patients. But the bill will have a major impact on the transgender community in Montana for years to come.
I came out at 17 as trans, and I changed my name.
Quinn Wolf will be the first to tell you that becoming trans isn't easy. He's among the many that have struggled to make their transition.
I didn't get to medically transition until literally the start of this year.
The current process requires recommendations from a psychiatrist or proof that a person suffers from gender dysphoria, a process Wolf wishes was shorter.
You have to have that diagnosis. You have to go through other people to get what you need.
Senator, please open on your bell.
And heavily debated legislation now passed by lawmakers in Helena will make the already difficult process nearly impossible for Montanans under the age of 18.
The Youth Health Protection Act is designed to protect children from the imposition of chemical and surgical procedures for the purpose of causing the child to physically appear more like a person of the opposite sex.
Republican John Fuller from Kalispell is the bill's author. He and other proponents of a ban on gender-affirming treatment and surgeries say the legislation is meant to protect children from making dangerous decisions that they may later regret.
Children live under the guidance and guardianship of adults precisely because they lack the maturity to make safe and responsible decisions for themselves. Many of the biological effects, for instance, of testosterone and hormone therapy cannot be reversed.
But many who have experienced those changes feel very differently. Wolf believes far more harm is caused when kids aren't allowed to fully embrace who they are.
It makes me worried. I'm worried about these kids. I'm worried about these people not being able to have this help that they need to actually be themselves.
And he's hopeful that something will change so that others will have an easier road than he did.
You don't have to agree on anything, on everything, to support your fellow humans.
In Billings, Charlie Kleps, MTN News.
On to another hot-button bill. A hearing over abortion rights in Helena pushes lawmakers to their breaking point. Some state senators walked out Tuesday while the bills were being discussed and didn't come back. Let's take a closer look.
Senator,
Mr. Chair,
just a second.
Three
Senator,
Democratic senators walking out mid-hearing and a fourth to follow. An hour into a hearing on a hot-button issue.
Abortion debate.
On Tuesday, the Senate Judiciary Committee heard 3 bills restricting access to abortion. The first up, House Bill 721, a bill prohibiting so-called dismemberment abortions, and the discussion quickly turned graphic.
That this bill restricts tearing apart a living, undelivered human being.
Supporters of the bill saying the details are a reality. Billings Senator Jen Gross, a Democrat, vocal in the hearing, saying the testimony was going too far.
Mr. Chair, I'm also going to object to terms like barbaric.
And it was when the discussion compared abortion to satanic ritual, Gross and 2 other Democrats had enough.
Going to recommend that the minority not participate in the remainder of this discussion if we are going to Satanism. Thank you.
Senator,
Mr. Chair,
just a second. Senator, as legislators, we get a lot of opinions.
Senator Gross says it's the 4th session in which she served on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and she's never seen nor participated in a walkout before.
The commentary and questioning of other members on the committee had nothing to do with the bill, and there was no reason for us to stay and sit for that.
Senator Gross said after that moment, Democrats and Republicans agreed to disagree over decorum in legislative hearings.
I have known the chairman of this committee to be very fair, and I have never seen this be allowed to happen until today.
Senator Chris Friedel, a Republican from Billings, said the floor should be open to all opinions and discussion.
However you feel, how heinous it is, or how disruptive or how painful it is, that is the job of the legislature.
The rhetoric of a hot-button issue pushing legislators to the edge over an issue anything but settled.
A bill repealing use of legal recreational marijuana in Montana gets its first hearing. Montana voters legalized recreational marijuana use for adults in the 2020 election, with 60% of voters giving it the stamp of approval. But Senator Keith Regier, a Republican from the Flathead, says voter support doesn't matter and the legislature does have the power to overturn legalization. Proponents say legalized marijuana is a danger to public safety, but opponents say there's no data to back that up, and sales show Montanans have spoken.
Is Montana on a path towards Colorado? Montana is only 2 years into recreational marijuana. There is a high cost to making an addictive and dangerous substance a commercial product. Senate Bill 546 is about public safety.
So many people think that marijuana is a safe drug, but that's a misconception that has only become more common as more states, including Montana, have legalized recreational use of marijuana.
The people were very aware of what they voted for. They had websites, they had television ads, they made their arguments to the people. The people said, sorry, we don't agree with you. We would like to have legal marijuana. Folks, we have a legal market. The citizens voted for this. They overwhelmingly support this. Cannabis Control Division has reported few problems. This is a no on this one, folks.
The bill would also require potency limits for medical marijuana products.
Taking meaningful action in addressing Montana's mental health crisis will also take a meaningful investment. But how much and how to do it is the subject of legislative debate. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian brings us this in-depth report.
At a House committee hearing on Wednesday morning, lawmakers and state leaders said they have a unique opportunity to invest in behavioral health in Montana, and it's time to take it.
We are here because we are fortunate to have a large surplus, and we will be able to solve problems. I look at this bill as an opportunity to do great things.
Representative Bob Keenan, a Republican from Big Fork, is sponsoring House Bill 872, which leaders say would support a behavioral health system for future generations. It would set aside $225 million to be invested over coming years in state and community-based programs for people with behavioral health needs or developmental disabilities. It would establish a commission with members appointed by the legislature and the governor to recommend how that money should be used.
To be on this committee is going to take a lot of time and a lot of work. I think it's going to be worth it. I think that Montana is positioned to really make some tremendous steps forward.
Another $75 million would be ready for future spending on state behavioral health facilities. Leaders said the plan is wide open at this point, and they'll look at all possible options, but they said there's no plan to close the Montana State Hospital at Warm Springs. During the hearing, some lawmakers questioned why the Department of Public Health and Human Services didn't have more details about how the money might be used, especially on potential new facilities.
Did I hear that you guys don't know what you're building?
Could the department have rushed a plan and a proposal forward and presented it to you all? We absolutely could have, but we've elected to hit pause to do this in a thoughtful, data-informed, rational manner alongside the legislature and providers and stakeholders.
Some advocates also opposed the form of the commission, saying people who've been through the behavioral health system should have a guaranteed voice.
Make sure that you're including the people that use the system as you design the system. Not just saying, hey, we're going to hold a listening session, but make sure we have that seat at the table and we're part of the decision-making process.
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Huckleberries are $1 million industry in Montana and a favored food of people and animals alike. Because of that, elementary students from Vaughan are working to get the berries officially declared the state fruit.
MTN's John Riley reports.
The Montana capital is known as the People's House, partly because of how accessible government is in the Treasure State. Whether you're a lawmaker or an elementary student, you have the right to have your voice heard in the legislative process. On Tuesday, the House State Administration Committee was jam-packed with fourth graders from Vaughan lobbying to have Montana take a definitive stance on huckleberries.
I am here today to ask you to vote for House Bill 880 to make the huckleberry our state fruit.
The students in Mrs. Brooks' class have been learning about state government and modeled how a bill gets passed. Montana doesn't currently have a state fruit, so the students worked with Representative Lola Sheldon Galloway to draft legislation. Each student presented testimony about why lawmakers should pick huckleberries to be the state fruit.
Indians use dried huckleberries to provide nourishment throughout the winter. Indians would mix dried huckleberries with meat.
Grizzly bears depend on huckleberries as a critical food source to fatten up before winter hibernation. The grizzly bear is also our state animal.
Huckleberries are high in antioxidants, which helps protect the body from the effects of high blood sugar, including kidney damage, poor tissue healing, and a diabetic condition that involves the growth of abnormal blood vessels in the retina.
Lawmakers were ripe with questions for the students.
So if we make the huckleberry our state fruit, am I going to be restricted on how much I can go pick and eat to get myself healthy?
I don't think it matters how much you pick and eat, but it might turn your poop purple if you eat it, so.
The committee unanimously voted to send the bill to floor, and members noted just how impressed they were with the kids.
They had a lot of great facts when they were doing their proponent testimony, a lot of stuff that I didn't even know about huckleberries. And when they came up to answer the questions, they did a great job. They were well prepared, and that's important.
Now, while huckleberries are generally beloved in this state, it doesn't mean this bill is guaranteed to pass. After all, Montana is also home to the flathead cherries and choke cherries, whose fans may lobby to have their preferred fruit be named state fruit. In Helena, John Riley, MTN News.
Coming up, we look at low-income options as time is running out for COVID-era assistance.
Stay tuned. Face the State. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Face the State.
Welcome back. Mobile home park residents across Montana have seen spikes in lot fees post-pandemic, and a bill from a Missoula lawmaker tries to rein in these fees and offer residents more of a say when parks are being bought and sold. Supporters of the bill call it the Mobile Home Residents' Bill of Rights.
Now, I'm sure we've all heard that large corporations out of state are purchasing these mobile homes, these mobile home parks, and then they're selling them, they're kicking people out, they're jacking up rents. Frankly, this bill doesn't address a lot of the problems. I would love to go a lot further. I've got a list here of multiple Montana mobile home parks and how much the rent is going up each month. 140%, 61%, 150%. People are being priced out of their own communities. This bill doesn't address that. What this bill does address is the fact that if a mobile home park is going to get sold, if the owner is looking for a change of use permit, that they need to, from local government, that they need to notify residents.
Opponents of the bill, including the Montana Landlords Association and mobile home park owners across the state, say it goes against property owner rights. A representative from Haven Park, a Utah-based company that owns several mobile home parks in Montana, says the bill is a disincentive to build or buy more property in Montana.
As you've heard, it's been very difficult over the last few decades to build new mobile home communities, but I do sense that's starting to change as we've had this housing crisis in Montana and elsewhere, and there is increasing interest from some local governments to add more availability for mobile home communities. We're interested in investing more and building more in adding opportunities, but legislation like this is a major disincentive for anybody to invest in the state.
One of Haven Park's properties is the Billings-based Meadowlark Mobile Home Park, and under its 2-year ownership, residents have seen several lot fee raises and years of discolored and black water. It's a mad dash to find housing for many people on the Montana Emergency Rental Assistance Program. As we've reported, the pandemic-era program provided thousands of dollars to hotels willing to house low-income families. But the program is now sunsetting and evictions are already underway. I take you now to Billings to check in on some of the 1,600 people who are now confronting an uncertain future.
Shoot. Oh no, do it again. Rock, paper, scissors.
With cats, dogs, and several kids, the Duero family's a large family living in cozy confines.
Well, right now we're living in a motel room at Motel 6 North in Billings, Montana.
They've been staying in this room at the Motel 6 for almost 4 months.
You have to cook here, do your dishes, shower. We make it work, but it's very difficult sometimes.
But after being homeless on and off since 2018, they feel lucky to be here.
I try to make it work
But that luck could run out as emergency rental assistance funded through the federal government to help people through the pandemic is set to expire.
I'm currently working. My husband's disabled. So as of now, we're trying to get accepted again for the MIRA program.
Since receiving nearly $200 million from the American Rescue Plan Act in 2021, the Montana Department of Commerce has paid out more than $120 million to 13,000 households across the state through the Montana Emergency Rental Program. The MIRA program allowed people to stay in hotels for up to 18 months, and the state would foot the bill. But the program was never meant to be permanent.
It's really going to be a problem for our community of a magnitude I don't think we've experienced before.
In January 2023, the state announced MIRA would stop taking new applicants. For 1,600 people living in MIRA-funded hotels and Billings, that meant potential homelessness.
Our shelter just so happens to close at the end of April. So at the same time, the funding that the city has generously given us for sheltering people this winter will run out at the same time that these folks will, inevitably all of them be exited out of the MIRA program.
The state is urging people to start planning for MIRA's end. The Duero family worries their eviction is coming soon, and with an eviction notice looming, the family feels desperate and unsure of what comes next.
More than likely, we'll be trying to find somewhere to go. It would most likely be in our car.
It's time for a break, but after this, Augusta takes an in-depth look at charter schools as Face the State continues.
Welcome back to Face the State.
Montana lawmakers are considering proposals to fundamentally change how K-12 education is funded by allowing for both local and virtual charter schools in the state. As I learned, this could be a Pandora's box in public education.
Another Montana school year winds toward its final bell, and talks are heating up in Helena regarding two House bills that could fundamentally change education in the state by introducing charter schools, HB 562 and HB 549.
The intent of House Bill 562 is to create options that empower parents, encourage students to develop their full educational potential, provide a variety of professional opportunities for teachers, and encourage educational entrepreneurship as being vital to the economic competitiveness of our state.
This is new for Montana, but old news in Oklahoma, where charter schools were introduced about 20 years ago and virtual charters about 10 years ago. Rural mom turned public education advocate Erica Wright says she wishes she would have paid closer attention then.
Created a huge mess here where we have these charlatans that came in and took advantage of a system that wasn't designed properly when it was initially set up, and they profited tens of millions of dollars off of the backs of Oklahoma's taxpayers.
I guess at the beginning of it all, what do you wish people would have asked?
I think the number one question that voters and constituents always need to be asking, that I wish I would have asked more back 10 years ago, is how is this funded? Where is the money coming from for this? And also, who profits?
That's a question Montana lawmakers don't have a clear answer for, at least not yet. A fiscal note on both bills says the cost of the measures can't be known at this point because there's no spending caps in the law, and the number of charter schools that could be created is also unlimited. Each would be entitled to annual funding of up to 80% of basic K-12 entitlements, which are $56,000 for elementary schools, $110,000 for middle schools, and $335,000 for high schools. A coalition of public schools groups are opposing HB 562 and offering instead to support HB 549, which is similar but offers more regulation.
I can do the math on this and show you very quickly how you'll spend $15 million. 20 schools across the state, located in the AA community schools, with a basic entitlement that goes with each and every one of them, and you could be 20 times easily the amount that's identified in here, and likewise for the other competing bill.
All that money would come from the same pot of state money as Montana's public schools, and local levies could be increased as well to pay for charter schools. In Billings, Augusta McDonald, MTN News.
Republicans in the Montana House gave initial approval Thursday to a bill that would prevent state money from covering abortions, except in limited cases. House Bill 862, sponsored by Republican Representative Mike Hopkins of Missoula, passed 62-38 on party lines in a preliminary vote. It would block using state money for abortion, except in cases of rape, incest, and when the woman's life is in danger. It would bring Montana's laws in line with a federal rule called the Hyde Amendment.
As strong as our personally held beliefs may be, that tax dollars should not be going to pay for elective abortion services. I don't think that's unreasonable. It certainly hasn't been unreasonable for the better part of the last 40 years.
Currently, Montana Medicaid covers medically necessary abortions. Analysts estimate the bill would affect about 700 abortions in the state per year, and about $300,000 a year in state money. Opponents of the bill said it could have broader impacts than expected and questioned its legality.
The state cannot legally selectively withhold certain benefits from otherwise qualified people simply because the state does not favor those benefits.
HB 862 is just one of the abortion-related bills being heard in the legislature this week. On Thursday morning, the House Judiciary Committee heard and advanced a bill that would revise Montana's law requiring parental consent before a minor gets an abortion. The consent provision has been blocked as part of a long-running lawsuit. House Bill 968 would change it to require a parent have the opportunity to consult with the minor and to apply to anyone younger than 16 instead of younger than 18.
The parental consultation components of the bill are narrowly tailored to promote the compelling state interests that have already been recognized by the court.
Opponents said even this would be too much government intrusion.
There are times when consulting, notifying, or requiring consent of a parent or guardian will put the pregnant teen in danger. It is imperative that we protect their rights and safety. Every single young person who is harmed by this bill is one too many.
We're approaching another deadline here at the state capitol. Money-related bills have to pass through their first chamber by next Tuesday in order to keep moving forward. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News. Montana's pension liability has been a topic of debate for years here at the state legislature. Now, two bills aimed at addressing that liability have passed the House and are up for consideration in the Senate.
I'd love to see the state not have that long-term liability bearing down on our children and grandchildren as a generational debt.
Republican Representative Terry Moore of Billings sponsored House Bills 226 and 569, which seek to reduce how long it would take for 4 state pension systems to pay off their liability.
Across the state, it's costing us about $350 million a year in lost earnings on the unfunded liability.
HB 226 applies to the Public Employees Retirement System, the largest state pension system. It would raise the required contributions from state and local employers and invest $300 million in state funding to help limit the immediate impact on those agencies. It would also make the default for new employees the defined contribution plan, where they assume the investment risk and opportunities, and give them an option for the defined benefit plan, where they're guaranteed a specific pension amount. Today, the defined benefit plan is the default, and the Montana Federation of Public Employees opposed the switch.
First of all, this affects people who forget to fill out paperwork, which when you're 22 has been known to happen once in a while. Currently, if someone forgets to fill it out, they are placed in the pension plan, the DB plan. Places them in a less secure retirement plan as the default to put them in the DC, defined contribution plan.
HB 569 would provide almost $100 million for 3 smaller systems. It would also change when newly hired members of the Sheriff's and Highway Patrol retirement systems can start drawing their pension, from after 20 years of service to after 20 years of service and reaching the age of 50. Law enforcement representatives expressed opposition to the change Monday, saying it's a difficult and demanding career, and it will make it harder to recruit and retain officers.
I ask that you allow your law enforcement leaders to continue to look at their recruits and tell them, if you give me your 20 best, if you serve this community with your 20 best years, we will in turn invest in you and you can draw your retirement.
The Senate Finance and Claims Committee took no immediate action on these bills after hearings on Monday. In Helena, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
After the break, we take a look at what's to come next week. Stick with Face the State.
Welcome back to Face the State.
Welcome back to Face the State. Joining me now, we have MTN senior political reporter Jonathan Amberian with what we can expect from another big deadline next week. Jonathan.
Thanks, Augusta. So we're coming up on the 3-quarter mark of the legislative session. We're about 3 months into it, and it usually goes about 4 months. And what that means is we had already the transmittal deadline for general bills, which is that any bills that don't deal with money have to pass through the House or Senate by halfway through the session. Well, for money bills, for bills that appropriate state money or bills that affect state revenue, raise or lower state revenue, they have a later deadline. They have to pass by the 67th day, which is 3/4 of the way through the session, and that is coming up next Tuesday. And quite frankly, they actually pushed that deadline back a little bit because they have such a rush of bills that they had to hear. So it's kind of it's another bottleneck with a huge amount of bills coming through. This time, some of the bigger bills, the bills that, like we say, that appropriate state money, and so they're big bills, and they take a lot of analysis and time to put together, and so they have a later deadline, and they're going to need to get through one of the chambers by Tuesday in order to keep moving forward.
And what do these later deadlines suggest about how long this legislature is going to last this year?
Well, they have 90 days. That's all the time they have under the Constitution. And so the 90th day, the way the schedule is set up right now, would be somewhere around May 4th. Every legislative session that I've covered has ended this last week of April. And I would expect that probably is what they're aiming for this time. When it gets to be the springtime here in Helena, they've been here for a few months. Everyone wants to start wrapping up, and you start to see people are just ready for going back to their going back home and getting things wrapped up here. So I would imagine that we're probably looking at the end of April again, but I've not heard anything official. I think when we get past this transmittal of revenue bills and constitutional amendments as well, I should mention, I think we'll probably start hearing from leadership then sort of a better idea of what might be the timeline for the rest of the session. And of course, the big budget bill, it's going to be in the Senate probably pretty soon after this, and that'll be the big determiner of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Again, MTN Senior Political Reporter, Jonathan M. Berrien.
Thanks, Augusta.